What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 81 of Reezy Talks. And today I got my man Bryce Prescott on the show. What's up, Bryce?
To episode number 81 of Resells.
You gotta do the mute.
Today
I do? Okay.
I know
Well,
you're
hold
a
on.
comedian.
How am I going to hear you, bro?
Oh, you gotta have headphones, bro. I know you're a comedian, but this shit isn't funny.
I do? Okay. I got to go grab some headphones then. Give me 2 seconds, man.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Go grab some wired headphones or some AirPods, and I'll just hold the air on the live show as I welcome everybody with a massive echo because he didn't pause it. But welcome everybody to the live show. My name is Reezy. As you know, I'm interviewing Mr. Bryce Prescott today. He thought he would start us off with a little trick here. Now he's got his headphones. We're getting back in the game. We're in the game, Bryce. Can you hear me?
We are in the game.
We're in the game.
I'm still getting a little bit of the thing in my ears, so I need to.
So your mic might have a headphone jack. I don't know. Mine does.
It doesn't.
Because your mic's not as cool as mine. But we're not here to talk about that. So, guys, Bryce is how would I just say you're a stand-up comedian? You're in the game. I don't know a ton about you, to be honest. That's all I really know about you.
I'm still getting like 6 different voices going on here. Like I'm
you
hearing
need to pause. You need to pause the YouTube video.
Pause the YouTube video.
Yeah, you have the actual YouTube video up still.
How do I do that? I don't have the browser.
Like somewhere you do. You have a browser open somewhere with a copy of the video playing. Whether you were there to look at the chat or whatever, bear with us, guys. We got just a couple little technical. Give us a second. We'll be fine. You still hearing it, Bryce?
Yeah. It's weird. I got everything closed out.
Yeah, you got another window open. It's probably behind the window that you're looking at right now. That'd be my guess.
I got nothing open, dude.
Nothing open, but you got major echoes going on. I would say kill. You know what? Why don't you just kill Chrome completely and go back to your email and click on the join link all over again?
Okay, let me do that then.
And I'll just hang out here with everybody. So, guys, episode 81, not off to a rocky start or anything. But glad to have you guys here. Things are getting crazy over here. But so I don't even know what to do right now. I really don't want to go into talking about Bryce's backstory because I don't know it a ton. And I want him here for the rest of it because it's going to be good. There's good mojos. But if you're on the podcast, you're lucky because you won't hear any of this. So Bryce and I met at Meltdown in the Desert Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, which is so hot in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the summer. And at that conference, Meltdown in the Desert, which is hosted by Colby K or Colby Kalibis. And I think Bryce is back. Are you back, Bryce?
I think so. Let me try to make sure there's no.
Are we good? You'd be hearing it by now.
Yeah, I got nothing. We're good.
You're good. All right, cool.
The schizophrenia has died. I had like 6 voices coming, and 2 of them were yours, and it was fucking with me a little bit. So sorry, dude.
No. It is what it is. We've had like a flawless. We've only had 80 episodes with no technical difficulties ever. You're the first episode we've ever had any technical difficulties. So it is what it is. But I mean, shit, man. So guys, I met Bryce at Meltdown in the Desert Conference. I don't know, like a year and a half ago. I don't know. Time flies. How long ago was it, Bryce?
It was last June, dude. It's been less than a year.
Less than a year. Felt like I've known him my whole life. So, and there's a story behind that, but met him at Meltdown in the Desert Conference, which is hosted by Colby K, which is a I don't even know how you describe it, a business entrepreneur, social media, motivational. I don't know. You leave feeling amazing. I just don't know how do you frame Meltdown. You know what I mean? It's so much different than a lot of other conferences that I've been to.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great way. It's like a social media themed, tell your story, get out of your shell, connect with other influencers. It was dope, dude. It was cool. I had a great time.
Yeah.
It's cool to meet you too, dude.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I spoke at this thing, which was cool. And after watching my tape, I was like, geez, I need to tone down the cussing. Way too much cussing on stage. I was like, I offended myself. It was kind of bad. But I do remember I'm at the conference and I seen you around, and there was like, the conference was so cool. Every day was cool. Every after day was cool. Like, and it all goes together. It was just all cool. Like Meltdown, you're like, damn, hell yeah, I'm going to Meltdown. Are you crazy? I'll book it for 3 years in advance. And I remember I saw you, and I think, it was just like, maybe get like the rough head nod, you know what I mean? Like, but I didn't really know you. And then later when we were at the VIP after party, which was a lot less because there was maybe, I don't know, 500 people at Meltdown or something. But at the VIP thing, there was a lot less. There was like, I don't know, 25 people, 20 people, especially as it got later. And the sound system was they kept messing up. There was like this wireless thing, whatever. I went and found an auxiliary cord, plugged it into my phone, and the song that I play, which I don't know, I was a little intoxicated, but this is the song I put on around all these people that I don't really know, but we're all having a good time. I just put on Tupac, Hit 'Em Up. And of course, when you drop a song, you don't even know exactly how it's going to go, kind of like maybe dropping a joke for the first time, you know what I mean? But that song's a classic. That song is a banger, right? But I'm telling you, I heard this song a million times in my life, but this time was the purest, most thuggest moment of my entire life from this song. And like everybody, I was like, it was like super slow motion. Everybody was like, just like they were in like freshman year of high school, just thugging out to Hit 'Em Up. Like everybody was singing everything. Like it was out of control. And I like looked over at Bryce, and Bryce was into it, and he was like, gave me a head nod, like, you made a good choice. Like,
dude, you're forgetting so much, man.
Okay,
like,
let's go back into it.
First of all, we are specifically not going to talk about the details surrounding the Sprinter van and where we were going with the VIP. I'm just putting it out there that there is more to this story.
There's details.
Okay,
but it's like a PG-18 channel. So
but where you and I, like my memory of it was where you and I first really had a good laugh and were connecting was at the lounge at the hotel. Like we were all hanging out there in that little bar area downtown. I was hanging out with TJ and Tyler.
This was like the night before the event.
The night before, yeah. And we were just cracking jokes and having a good time. And like it was fun.
I stayed out a little too late that night because I remember exactly what happened. At 2 a.m., Sean Whalen pulled up on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like more drinks till 4 a.m.
Yeah. I was in bed by that time already. I'm like, these young kids, I'm out. But
yeah, the drinks are closed. But when you're Sean Whalen and you pull up on a freaking motorcycle at 2 a.m., I think he brought his own drinks or so. I don't know where it came from, but
all that swagger.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. But yeah, I really don't remember hanging out down there because I think what it was like, it's overload. The first night at a conference with new groups of people. I think you knew people that were there. I didn't know anybody. So like, you know what I mean? Every night or every day, every 20 minutes is like 5 to 10 new people. Yeah. And you get like super overloaded, right? So for me, it was the connection over Tupac Hit 'Em Up that really brought us together and created a thug passion, if I had to say, between us.
The tears were there for you. I remember holding you so that you could feel like loved in that moment.
Yes. Because, I remember that.
Not very many people like Tupac, and you're like, finally, somebody knows that I know likes Tupac.
Me, right? But no, obviously that's entirely not true at all. But it was something spiritual to it. I can't explain it. You can't put it into words, but it was a spiritual thing over a Tupac song, specifically Hit 'Em Up, which might be one of the hardest diss tracks ever. We all were just hard as hell for like about 2 minutes until
when you lead out the gate with that's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker. Like
you're like no one's parents are around, so you can like really authentically, confidently sing it and yell it out. You know what I mean? So
yeah, kids are in bed. There's no worries.
Yeah, and so the next day I was like, man, Bryce is a cool dude. And then they had the other thing with the man in the red bandana, R.I.P. shout out.
Yep.
And they gave away these cool red bandanas, and I had one, and I was like, man, I'm about to put this on like a bandit. And I just look over, and Bryce already did it. And I was like, man, my boy got me. Like, I can't even do it now. He already did it. Like, then I'm copying Bryce. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I knew Bryce was a cool dude, and so we talked it up a little bit. I checked out his stuff. He checked my stuff out,
Yep.
And he was actually scheduled to come onto the show like in July or something. And fate just so has it, and Mandy made it happen. So here he is.
Well, I
What, like a
appreciate you
week,
letting me
like a
on your
week after
platform,
you,
dude.
like a week after you scheduled the show that was going to be like 4 months later.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you letting me come on your show on the platform, dude. This is cool.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Always, if you guys want to show some love, which you should do to our guest Bryce's linkamajiggers are down there for Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. I think whatever I could find. I hope I put the right stuff down there, not like, your old channel from high school or something.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. If you just go to bryceprescottcomedy.com, it's my link tree for all that stuff. So it's super easy to find.
Slam them. Easy to remember.
Yeah.
So, I'm actually really fascinated with what you do with the comedy, because I think I'm funny, whether, I don't really care if anyone else thinks I'm funny. I'll laugh at the thought of that. That's great. That's freaking epitomizes it. But to be a stand-up comic has balls. Like, I rap. I specifically freestyle rap, right? And it has a similar element where it's like, you know what I mean? That whole thing of you're doing it live. You can't mess up. You know what I mean? Or if you can, you have to do it in such a way that's so pro, no one can tell you can mess up. And with rapping, a lot of times the audience is not so intellectual. And so it's like you can smooth it over, like put the blur tool on it a little bit when you mess up. But with comedy, I feel like it's so damn intellectual. It scares me. So I'm just stoked to have a guy that's not scared to do it, who's my friend, so I can basically just text message him every single thing that I think is worth being a joke, which I'm sure he's
That's
pretty
become
tired of by now.
one of my favorite things is to get like a text from you at like 2 a.m. and it's some like random premise, like, bro, this is what I'm thinking. And it's sometimes they're great, dude. I'm like, that's pretty dope, man.
I'm like, all right, so pretend in this thing you're a gay guy that likes chocolate. Right, that's actually pretty obvious. But anyways, point being, it's just it will be the suit. I don't know. It was gonna be not PG-18, but what I'm saying is that it's always the most random stuff, and I just love it that it's okay, right? Because like that's what you do. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I can't even tell anybody. These are things that literally just get locked away in my head, or like I'll note it down somewhere. I'm never gonna be a stand-up comic or sit down and orchestrate jokes, you know what I mean? But just to have someone to share them with, and they'll be like, yeah, once in a while, Bryce is like, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I like it, dude. Well, the whole like joke writing process is basically just it's angles, In comedy, they have this thing called the left turn, which is when you can set something up and you can leave enough up to the imagination of the listener that you can then at the very end like turn the corner and it's hilarious.
Because you were leading them kind of one way-ish, and then it's like totally different.
Yeah. Like as an example, is this a grown-up show? Can I use grown-up examples?
I mean, as long as you're not talking about sex and stuff, we're fine.
Oh, well then never mind. I was gonna use one of Adam Sandler's jokes on his new special because it's perfect, like the way that he does the left turn. But I don't know how to do it without talking about sex because that's all Adam Sandler talks about is dick jokes and
so.
Anyway, you set it up so that then the natural idea of where you thought it was going to go isn't where it goes.
Right.
That
And so where you
actually
end up is like drastically funnier because you created a juxtaposition between where you thought you were going versus where you actually are, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that could be deep. You could be like, dang, what's wrong with me?
No. That's the fun of it. That's like, and
I feel like that's kind of like what Tosh.0 does, Daniel Tosh, but he takes it even to the next level, which is once you go, dang, what's wrong with me? And the only thing you can do is laugh uncomfortably. The other person next to you is just like appalled that you're even laughing. And that's like the actual joke.
Well, dude, see, that's one of the things I find most fascinating about the psychology of comedy. You can't fake an organic laugh. If you hear a joke that you find funny, that says so much about who you are, where you came from, your conditioned responses. Like you can't fake. I mean, you can fake laugh like ha ha ha, but when you find something legitimately organically funny, there's no way around it. And that's one of the fun things, is because especially like in 2019, everybody's so worried about offending everybody, and we have all these new rules about what you can say. You get into a comedy club, and all of a sudden you hear some outlandish shit, and you know exactly where the crowd stands on it because they're laughing their heads off on something that's off color,
Yeah, the bar just goes down. You're like, oh, okay. You're like pulling out some stuff that you maybe thought you couldn't use or whatever. But man, I think people underestimate just like being funny in itself is basically being super smart, because you have to be smart enough and you have to be way fast thinker than the people that you're trying to amuse, especially when you're doing it like in like on the cuff, like real life, when you're creating it like live as
Yeah.
you go. Like, what's the art? Why did I make you laugh? Because I knew what would make you feel uncomfortable or feel X and Y, which the only thing you can do out of that is laugh. But you put them there, you know what I mean? Because you know what's going to happen. You're one step ahead of them, and it's not, it's not like this novelty thing. It's like something smart people can do.
Yeah, and it's more than just funny. Being good at comedy is similar to sales. So if you want to get somebody's money, they got to know you, they got to like you, and they got to trust you, right?
Right.
Well, to get somebody to laugh, they've got to know you, like you, and think you're funny. And so two of those three things have nothing to do with funny. It has to do with stage presence, has to do with charisma, it has to do with like the way you look, if you're peculiar, your voice, like all these different things playing. You can have the exact same joke, the words be told by 5 different comics, and it'll land 5 different ways because of the mouthpiece it's coming out of. And the beautiful part about that is that there is such a thing as group think. Like when current events happen, there'll be a bunch of comics that write the same joke, like not knowingly, and they're not biting each other's stuff, but just like the ethos. They're like, "Ow, that's
right." It's all a basic framework around a certain common situation.
Sure. And with that, it's little different, intonations or angles or whatever that make it funny for the mouthpiece. That's why it's such an exciting thing. Like I'm older, like I'm not in my 20s anymore. And so the idea of me starting stand-up at this stage of my life and career, a lot of people thought was silly, but I'm like, nah, man, like with YouTube and social. And
how long have you been doing it for?
I've been doing it for a year and a month.
Wow.
So 13 months. And I've been gangbusters, dude. Like I've already had some ridiculously cool opportunities. I
told you this wasn't like a PG-18 show. You can't just say stuff like that.
What do you mean?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I didn't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I've opened for Russell Peters. I've opened for Brian Callen. I've opened for Miss Pat. I just opened for Rick Gutierrez, who was the guy that basically wrote Gabriel Iglesias' special with him on the last one that he did. I've opened for Joe Zimmerman. I've opened for Reno Collier, who was one of the redneck blue collar guys.
Right.
I've done dozen plus shows. Like I'm in the thick of it. Like
Where are you out of? You're out of.
I'm out of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay. And do you do most of your work there?
Yeah, like, well, I've traveled a bit. I've done some stuff down in Vegas and in St. George, which is right next to Vegas. It's about 100 miles in southern Utah. But I'm really lucky in that here locally, the main club is called Wise Guys, and there's 3 locations. It's owned by one of the most respected dudes in comedy right now, which his name is Keith Stubbs. He's been around forever. He's a comedian himself, but he's a very, very savvy businessman as well. The guys that come through town, like it's impressive. Like, for example, Chris D'Elia right now is on his, Follow the Leader tour, where he's selling out literally like 3,000-4,000 seat theaters. And he comes into Salt Lake, and he did one of the only clubs he's done on his entire tour was here in Salt Lake, because it's such a great venue. The crowds are great. He's treated like a king when he's here by Keith Stubbs, who's the owner. And I just so happen to be lucky enough to have this be my home court. Like I go to this place where it's like I'm hanging out in the green room with, like I said, like Russell Peters. Like I made $15 million last year, and he's a world phenom comic, and he's hanging out with me commenting on my Jordans. Like it's surreal to have that kind of access to that kind of talent as being so young. And on top of that, I'm able to really understand the writing process. Like I'm not an idiot. Like I recognize that I come from a public speaking background and a coaching background, and the things that make you great at public speaking, a portion of those things can make you great at comedy, but they can the other portion of those can make you suck as a comedian. Because as an example, as a public speaker, when you get on stage, you've got to establish authority immediately. Like, listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. You do that shit as a comedian, they hate you, dude. Like you are one of them. Like you are their mouthpiece. And so it's a different like level to be able to connect with the crowd. And, other little things like in a public speaking format, it's very normal to like explain something. Oh, well, this is what this means. Okay. You try to do that as a comedian, one of 2 things happens. they're like, who's this dick telling me, you know, what he doesn't think I know, or they go to a different part of their brain where they're learning instead of laughing, and they don't laugh. And so I've had to learn how to.
You don't want anyone learning.
Yeah, none of that. No, well, no. You do, but you don't want them to know.
Right.
So
right.
like for example, one of my very first bits that I ever wrote. So my wife is a Pilates instructor, and there's a bunch of stuff about like that world that a lot of people don't know. And when I first wrote these bits about what she does, I would say, "Oh, this is what happens," or whatever, and it would always fall flat. And then I figured out like, oh, I'm one of them. I got to take them on this journey with me. So I changed up how I would describe it. So it's like I was figuring this out so I could explain kind of my journey of how I figured it out along the way. And indirectly, I was explaining to them without explaining to them. And I was setting up this momentum so that when the punchline came, it was just gangbusters. They were dying. So,
and it's like, so for example, any of your wives do Pilates? No, I didn't think so. So let me just tell you how this Pilates shit works. So blah, 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 blah. Right. And then lead into the joke. But then you get some story time. You get to buy some friendship with them through the.
Well, actually how you set that up is exactly wrong too.
Damn.
It's more like so my joke is about Kegels, right?
Okay.
So some people don't know what Kegels are.
I'm doing a Kegel exercise right now.
There you go. Special K, my man. That's your rapper name. So a lot of people don't know what that is, dude. And like Pilates instructors, like with the way they have you like flex and tighten and everything with your pelvic floor, like women's stuff gets like snugged up real good. And that is called a Kegel, right? So instead of me explaining that, I now be like, dude, so my wife came home and she hates the name Kegels. And I had no idea what that was, man. I had to go to Google to figure this shit out. And by the way, be very careful when you Google shit about tightening the ladies, you know, because you can't unsee certain things. And like, it's just this whole thing about me and this discovery when I'm just laying the groundwork to like have the pieces of information be there so that they can know exactly what's up.
Right. No, I'm fascinated with it. There's like, for sure, like textbooks about comedy, right?
Yeah.
Is there not? Right.
Yeah, there's
like
tons of them.
Because I don't like you were saying, oh, what did you say? There's like the left turn or whatever.
Left turn, yeah.
Right. Because I don't know any of them, but like the one that I do know that I'm familiar with is like the callback. You know what I mean? Like I think that was like the first one I learned, you know, and I'd be like, oh, here it comes. You know what I mean? Like all good cheesy comedy has like one, if not three callbacks. You know what I mean? Like.
Well, it's good. I mean, a good comic is good at momentum. Like you basically just have to like there's this equation that your setup has to equal your punchline.
Yeah. Well, like for example, I think one of the first times I noticed it was like in Happy Gilmore, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. He's like shaking Chubb's hand, which is already a joke because it's like just wood and his arm's way too long. It flies out into the road, and that's like a joke, right? And then he's like, "No, don't worry, it's real sturdy. It's made out of wood." And then right then a truck drives over it, and you're like, "Damn!" And then the truck like stops and asks for directions or whatever and takes off, and then it like backs up and does it again and asks something else, you know. But I think I might be mixing it up with How High. They do basically the same thing in How High with the dude's bicycle. The car keeps coming back over and running it over. And then at the end, when he's crying that it's all ran over, everyone comes up and steals all the pieces. So they took it like to the next level.
Right on, man.
But it's comedy is amazing, man. But tell us how you got into comedy, man. Like, I mean, one does not just say, I want to do comedy and then the next day go to open mic, or do they?
Well, there comes a point like that. My comedy story is I'm actually really proud of it because for majority of my like adult life, my adult career, I've done a bunch of stuff in sales, and in the last 6-7 years, I've been in the executive and business coaching space where I would like work with entrepreneurs and CEOs and things to help them with some aspects of handling the stuff outside of their business so that they can actually have a life that's balanced. And I love that, but that kept me more buttoned up, where I wasn't really able to be kind of the smart ass. I wasn't able to, be that funny guy. I had to be more, the guy with the tie and the suit on and everything.
You weren't rolling up, bumping Tupac, hit him up.
Well, I was, but I would just be very, very white when I would do it. So I could, get away with it. But it was So I actually hired this woman to help me. I hired my own coach, and I learned that basically a lot of the challenges that I was having in my life was that I was ignoring this sort of jester energy that I have about me. Like I've been a smart ass and a funny kid ever since I came out of the womb. And as a grown up in business, I would throttle that. I would muzzle it. And I didn't like having to do that, but I just felt like, well, if I'm going to make money, if I'm going to have any influence, I've got to be this other type of person. I'm working with this coach, and she's like, no, you got to be both, dude. Like, you got to, I'm like, how do I be both? How do I be this other, like, kind of more buttoned up guy and this other one? And she's like, you just do. And so I started trying kind of interjecting into that. And I'd be more, a little bit more vulgar, and I'd be more funny, and I'd crack jokes when it probably wasn't the best time to crack them, whatever. But I just started being more free with being myself, and I started being happier. And I started like having this creativity kind of come to me. And then last February, in February of 18, I watched this documentary on HBO called The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling. It was about the famous comedian Gary Shandling, who had just recently passed away a couple years ago. And Judd Apatow had created this 4-hour, 2-part documentary about his life. And Gary Shandling was one of the most like transformational comedians that was out there. He was a part of one of the very first kind of reality, quasi not reality show TV shows in the Larry Sanders Show on HBO. Hilarious actor, comedian. But he was also a practicing Buddhist, and he was a mentor and a coach to a lot of the people in the comedy world. Like, so he was this guy that was hilarious, but yet he had this like really good connection on a personal level with people where he could really help them in their lives. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's like me. Like, I've been doing this work in the coaching space to help people. And I felt a real connection to that. And I'm like, I thought to myself, I just got to figure out what this means. So I started researching what it would take to do an open mic here in Salt Lake. I went and checked it out. I started writing a bit. You get 3 minutes here on your first open mic. And so I went and tried it. And I had a bunch of people that were here that supported me. I had about 30 people that showed up and everything. And when I got off stage, I got all this great feedback that I hated. They were like, oh man, you're so brave. And I'm like, fuck that, dude. I want to be funny. I don't want to be brave. Like, who gives a shit about being brave? So I come back the next week, and there's nobody there except my wife. And I eat shit, dude. Like, not a single laugh. Like, it's just the most horrible set ever. And after I got off stage on that thing, I got this like weird sort of tingle. I'm like, I want to be great at this. Like, week 1 was pats on the back for doing something that's hard. Week 2, nobody gave a shit. And I was there by myself with my wife. Like, now this is where I'm actually starting from. That last week was fake. Week 2 is where I'm starting from. And so I started doing as many open mics as I could. I write every single day. I use this digital journal called Day One on my phone and laptop, where whenever I have an idea for a thing, I'll pull my phone out and I'll type in the premise and I'll do it and I'll map it out. And I'm doing comedy 3-4 times a week as it stands right now, just because I can't do any more than that in Salt Lake. It's not like it's in LA where there's 3 open mics a night. Like, I do as many as I can. And then because of what I've been able to create within the Wise Guys organization, I'm afforded the chance to be able to do opening spots with some of the touring comedians that come through. So like this last weekend, I did spots for Rick Gutierrez. Like I said, he's Gabriel Iglesias' guy. And I'm just in it. Like, I've applied all of the same business and mind goal setting strategies to my comedy that I've done to every other business. Like, I want my own Netflix special. I want to have like a massive following of like, raving fans that think I'm hilarious. Like, I have a podcast called Grab the Mic that I put out twice a week that gives me a chance to share my part of the journey and crack some jokes. Like, it's not just me being funny. It's me kind of laying the landscape out. And, I'm following kind of the Gary V model, if I'm honest on this, like just documenting the entire journey. Sometimes it's really hilarious, and sometimes I'm able to bust balls and be really funny. Sometimes it's like, man, that was a really shitty set. I got to regroup from that, and I got to fix what I wrote, and I got to, and so the short version of that is, after I gave you the long version, is that I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. Like, I recognize where I want to go, and I'm looking at each step as a necessary piece to get to where I want to go in the long run.
Do you have other streams of income, or are you living off of comedy or no?
Oh, dude, comedy doesn't pay anything, man. Like, I maybe make a couple $100 a month on comedy. That's it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I still do the coaching stuff that I referenced. I have another podcast that's called The Daily Rule, which is a very buttoned up, no cursing, like 5 days a week, inspirational self-development type show.
I think that's
great.
the one I linked below in the description.
Okay. Well, that's fine too. Like it's a different side of me. It's like I have the one side that's, the business guy, and then I have the comic side. So I do that. I've gotten into audio production where like I've done this for several corporations where I've been doing podcasting since 2014 and 2013. And I have over 500 episodes that I've personally produced myself. And I've started I've created a program now where like I will teach entrepreneurs and self-employed people how to start their own shows and maintain them. I do some production for a couple people where I'll produce their episodes. So I just piece together a bunch of stuff so that I can have the time I need to be able to go.
But do you have a day job other than that, or no?
No, I'm fully self-employed.
So all internet money, several different ways.
All that, yep.
Yeah.
And all that Pilates money coming in from the wife, know what I'm saying?
Calm your kegel ass down. No, that's cool though, man. Like there's so many different hustles. There's so many ways that we can make money now, that like that's like the first level. That's like the first thing is like, oh, we're so blessed to be able to have all these ways to make money. But that is not even what I see as the greatest thing. The greatest thing is that like once you have the opportunity to get the money, then you can do what you really want to do, which for a lot of people may not ever make them any money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, dude,
like for me, like my favorite thing is skateboarding. Like I got to skateboard and I'm never going to be really good. There's a reason I picked up the camera a long time ago because I knew I wasn't going to be the one that was going to be in front of it.
Right. That's well, truth be told, I don't know how young guys do stand up in 2019 without having extra income. Like there's a portion of the scene here locally of like really young guys in their, mid to early 20s, and they are broke. They live on a futon with 6 friends. And they're always stressed about cash. And it's like, but that throttles your creativity, man. Like when you're stressed about that stuff, a lot of them are addicts. Like it's a really weird thing. And it's like, they don't like, if you don't have the freedom of feeling at peace to really dive into the creative side, you can't write good stand-up. You can write jokes and you can get laughs from other people whose lives are a mess. But like when I look at like a broad appeal, there's like the whole like, alt comic, like the really like smoking. And he's like just the weird, deep, odd comedy, that 6 people like, but doesn't work in the mainstream. Like, sure, there's tons of that around, but I have no desire to do that. Like I want to sit in a arena and tell joke to 4,000 people and make them all laugh,
Yeah, no, it's just crazy though, man, that we all have that. Not we all, but I mean, you have the opportunity to do it. And like those people, I definitely want to help a lot of those people because it kind of hurts my soul when I see people that are like literally putting their soul on the grindstone, chasing their dreams. And they're going broke. They're losing all their money. You know what I mean? They're like, maybe they're not really that talented, and they need to practice for a few more years before they try to go at it this hard or like whatever it is. But it's like, man, if you could let me teach you how to make some money on the side, on the internet, one of a million ways, so that you can only work 20 hours a week, or 10 or 0, so that you can actually apply some time to your thing versus, you're taking out loans to publish music, to make music videos, and you think you're going to be the next rap star. And it's just like, bro, if you're going to make it, you can make it film it with your phone in your damn bedroom. Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I've noticed that and I've had this too. Like I'm an adult, I'm established. I don't have a lot of those I don't have any of those same issues. Fairly adultish. And so I've tried to help some of these younger kids that are a part of the scene, and some of them don't want it. And it's like, well, okay, like I can't help somebody that doesn't want it. All right. I'll just set an example. I'll just like be my best self on the grind, be visible in what I'm doing, and, hopefully maintain an open enough energy with how I do things to where when people want, to talk to me or pick my brain or anything, that like I'm open enough to where they feel like they can do that. I by no means have all this figured out. I'm just really, really relentless in the hustle of it.
Right.
I don't have 15 years on the grind to go, do open mics and to work on get. I got to be great in like 3 years for this to work. And so I'm doing the work to be great in 3 years.
The amazing thing is, man, nowadays you can do so much more in 3 years than you could ever do before you had the internet. You know what I
100%,
mean?
dude.
Like you can be basically everywhere without even leaving Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're not actually doing shows, but like you said, you're not there yet. And so like, it doesn't even matter so much as long as you can get into someone's feed, or whatever.
Well, dude, with YouTube and Instagram and stories and stuff like this, like it used to be that you had to like be on the Tonight Show or Comedy Central had to be the one to give you your special as a comic. Like that world is done. Like
Right.
there's a really interesting podcast where Rogan had this guy named Andrew Schultz on his podcast about a month ago. And Andrew Schultz is an up and coming comic, but he's a savage and he's really good. And he completely understands the YouTube game. Like he's talking about how, there's all these horrible specials on Netflix and nobody watches an hour of comedy at a time anymore. They'll watch 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. But yet people will get into like a YouTube rabbit hole and watch 3 hours of comedy videos on YouTube just because everything's streaming through. And he's like, I will put all my money into creating like really high quality specials. And then I'll cut them up in a bunch of different links. And I'll have those links be topical with jokes that I put on YouTube and have them optimized on YouTube. And then all of a sudden I have this massive fan base because people are spending 2-3 hours at a time watching my shit on YouTube. And I go to a comedy club and I demand a higher amount for the money that I want. And they go, how can you do that? And you say, here's my following. I'm going to sell out every one of those damn shows at $50 a ticket. That's how. And they comply. Like it's
how the industry, every industry is like that now. It's, I mean, obviously talent weighs itself, but there's people with less talent with way more following. Or vice versa or whatever. And it's just because the marketing of it is a huge thing now.
Dude, this weekend is a prime example of that. So I opened for Rick Gutierrez. Rick Gutierrez he's a prolific comedy writer and he's been doing stand-up for 30 years. He's a really funny Latin guy. He was on tour with Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy, for a long time. And he helped write his last 3 specials. He has 0 social media.
Wow.
But as a comic, like I watched him this whole weekend, he is one of the best comedians I've ever seen live. Like his command of the audience, the tightness of his jokes, his left turns. Like, I mean, he gets on stage and it's literally a complete uproar for an hour. Like we're talking like just everybody's belly laughing and rolling over. And he's telling these long form stories while they're getting this type of laughs, which is really difficult to do. And I got to hang out with him for about 2 or 3 hours Saturday after our last show. We go over to this place. He wanted to get a beer and we're talking and he's like, it's been my downfall. I haven't learned how to utilize, he's in his 60s. He's like, I haven't learned how to utilize social media and it's killing me. And he was telling me of these other examples of like people that he knows in his circle that literally suck as comedians, but they've gotten viral on a couple of videos and they've got a big following now. And they'll go to these clubs and you'll see a horrible experience. Like as a consumer of comedy, you go to these clubs and it's dog shit, like not comedy, not funny, but everybody goes and pays.
That's the part of it that sucks. But the greatness of it is when you can,
Well, the flip side of that is when you have both of those things. When you have a guy like Chris D'Elia who masters, he was just on that Eminem and Logic track with one of his goofy things he did when he was making fun of Eminem. Like he's a killer at social media and he's selling out 4,000 seat theaters for 3 nights in a row all over the country every weekend. Like,
yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I don't think a lot of people think about it, but your social media following is, or whatever is your stat card, for lack of a better description. It's literally your business card. Like I have asked the same people the same questions when I had 10,000 followers, no reply. 20,000 followers, no reply. 30,000, no reply. 50, oh, now they want to talk. You know what I mean? Or whatever, like fuck that person, gave up on talking to them. Now that I have 100, they're trying to reach out to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like people just see, it's not their fault, but it just makes it easier to see you. It's almost like, having 100K on YouTube is like having a Ferrari when you pull up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it's the weirdest thing ever, like if you could be somewhere and then like people would just be like, he's a 100K YouTuber. like all of a sudden people are like and start like looking at you and like maybe want to like hang out near you, like the weirdest shit ever. They don't even know you, no idea what your channel's about. It could be anything in the world, you know what I mean? Like,
dude, I'm gonna be real,
but it
Reezy.
just
Like
gets
that's
people's attention. It's insane.
this was a funny moment that I had with you, and you don't even know it. Like when you hit your 100K mark on YouTube, like that same week, like you were texting me back and forth again about some joke stuff, and I was laughing. I'm like, dude, like I have access to this dude that I don't even give a shit about his YouTube channel. He's just my friend. Like it's this, but it's this weird thing. It's like,
Thanks,
that's the elephant in the room, though. Is it like you have this massive platform with what you built with your resale stuff? It was a cool moment. It was like, I got some cool friends, man. This is dope.
Well, thank you, man. Like that's one of the coolest things about it. And I don't mean being able to swing around my 100K dingaling. I just mean that like when people that like are like me and are similar and they're like, whoa, bro, 100K. And I just look at them. I'm like, yeah, bro, did it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like you not in like a braggy way, but just like you could do it too. You know what I mean? Just like,
you have 100K subscribers and you ain't even doing ASMR, my man.
Why are we not doing ASMR videos?
Maybe you should do that with your reseller videos and do it like ASMR. And you can get it.
All right, guys. So I just pulled up to the Goodwill. First thing we're gonna do over to the electronics section. Oh man, we could be the yin yang twins of reselling ASMR style.
Oh my god, dude, that's brilliant.
Yep.
Ding 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 a ling ding ding.
Oh my god, man. What were we talking about? We were
just talking about the hustle. You were talking about you. You're swinging your big old, as you said, your 100K ding-a-ling like a 7-year-old. Nice word.
Not in a way, but I'm just saying, like, it's weird. Like, I'm just me studying the psychology of how other people react. Like, I trip out on that because I grew up so poor, so sometimes that kind of shit happens to me and I don't even realize it. You know what I mean? Like, I have an Audi Q5, which is like arguably a nice vehicle. I got it used when it already had like 60,000 miles. It's a 2010. It's not a freaking 20, nothing near this year. But, you know, people don't know it's not a 2010. And so I know as soon as I got it, people started treating me different. You know what I mean? Like, damn, Reezy got an Audi. Oh, you balling now, son? Like, no, it's not any more than a Prius payment. You know what I mean? Like,
if you were balling out, that doesn't matter. Like,
no, it doesn't at all. But I trip out on how simple people react differently to you, and then they're not the people that are like in the thick of you and your circle, and you kind of realize how people actually pay attention to the world around them by what changes you make that actually get their attention. You know what I mean? Like, for example, my people around me are like, man, you did it 100K YouTube, and it's like these are people that not talk to me at all on my entire journey. Some of them are family members, some of the people I went to high school with that are on Facebook every freaking day. And it's like, what? You didn't have shit to say when I was at 5, 10, 15, 20, 40, 50, 68. All of a sudden it's 100. And that's the number that it makes sense to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or even my mom calling me like, are you famous, son? I'm like, Jesus Christ, mom. Like, not any more famous than I was yesterday. You know, like.
People thought I was a hobbit with a flat brim, but that's about as famous as I'm going to get.
Exactly. Right. I'm still out here looking for Golem, my precious.
I am the Gandalf to your Samwise, so we're good there, man.
I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so all of those references went over my head. So
it's not those aren't even deep cuts, dude. Those are just too me.
Yeah, no, I want all the deep cuts. Bring them on. Let's go over real quick before we wrap it up. I want to talk about how does one go about writing jokes, stacking jokes, recording. What is the difference between a person who is funny and a person who is a comedian? Because it all starts in the same spot, a lot of it. Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've always considered myself a funny guy, and I always was like, oh, I want to be a stand-up comic, and for a long time I didn't really realize it, and then I kind of realized, I was like, oh, when funny shit happens through observation or whatever, you write it down, and then you build on it or whatever. But like, can you explain that process like in a more technical way to people that might want to become comedians but have no idea?
Yeah, sure. So well, first of all, if you're a funny person, you're a funny person. Okay. That doesn't being funny doesn't make you a great comedian, and being a great comedian doesn't actually make you a funny person, ironically. There's people that I know that are savages on stage. You meet them off stage and they'll put you to sleep. They're fucking boring. But they've
like at the barbecue, they're not busting any off the cuff jokes.
They're like seriously, like they will put you to sleep. Like it's a weird thing. They've learned how to craft jokes and timing, and they understand them, and they can deliver it because doing stand-up comedy is a performance. However, if you are naturally funny, that is the best way to become a really prolific comedian. One of my favorite comedians is Kevin Hart, and he was talking to Dan Patrick recently on the Dan Patrick radio show. And Dan Patrick asked him, he says, "What's one of the biggest mistakes young comedians do?" And Kevin Hart said they forget they're funny. When you first get into comedy, you're a funny person, and you want to expound upon that on the stage. But you realize how different it is when you're actually up there under the lights, you're telling jokes, they don't laugh. It's an entirely different crucible that time when you're on stage. And so you have to learn how to handle that, how to create pacing and timing and momentum, and how to deliver, and how to involve your body and your face, and like all that stuff you have to learn over reps. And as much as you can get great advice and you can workshop and everything, you have to get on stage to really work it out. And so funny guys, I've seen this happen with some of the younger crop here locally. Really funny dudes will get on stage and they'll eat shit and they'll forget they're funny. And they'll be like, no, you're hilarious, dude. Like, you just got to get back to that flow, that being cool with it, and then understand how to put that into a joke writing thing. Another thing that comedians do that they don't need to, especially at the beginning, is they fall in love with their jokes. Like, you might think something's funny in your head and you can't get it to hit. You got to put it aside. You can't fall in love with it. And so that process really is like that. It's a constant of thinking.
And how does one like, you know, conclusively decide that it's not funny? By delivering it on stage and no one laughs?
Yeah.
Because I almost feel like your friends and your family are, you know, it's like you can't get a real reaction out of that.
No. There's a Jerry Seinfeld has said this many times, and it's spot on. He's like, the first level of funny is when you can make your friends laugh. The second level of funny is when you can make strangers laugh. The third level of funny is when you can make strangers laugh for money. And the fourth level of funny is when you're so good that people will mimic you back to you. So like, people do Jerry Seinfeld impressions back to him. Like, he's at the pinnacle.
Right.
Chappelle, Rock, these guys, right? So yeah, it's a process of having an idea, like there's some simple rules to live by. You know, basically your setup has to equal your punchline has to equal your setup. It's an equation.
Well, like let's like kind of like roughly dice. I'm not saying we're gonna write a joke right now. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yesterday I had a thing happen to me in real life. I made an observation and I text you. Bryce is literally, I hope he's putting these jokes in his notebook because I'm just texting them to him. So, but I was with a friend and she was like, had a couple drinks, Liz Kellogg, shout out Liz. And she made an observation that like Facebook had pissed her off because it shared a memory to her about from a time when she was like skinnier and had a better body. And like, maybe you're in a bikini or something, I don't know. And then imagine, you know, down the line that you're like, Facebook, you're rude. Like, you're not as good. You know what I mean? Or the opposite. Maybe it's a picture of you like passed out when you were 17 at a party. And you can't delete it because, you know, it's not your photo. Someone tagged you, that whole thing, you know, and it's just rude and you have no control over it. So like, that's something that I think might have potential to be funny.
Okay. Well, this is great. Let's workshop this because this is exactly what I'm talking about. So the premise is that Facebook is rude and it reminds you of a time when things were better for you, right?
Or worse. Either way, you could flip it both ways.
Sure. Okay. So yeah,
way.
When things were different, right? So then that has certain similarities with other funnier premises that you could write in there. So it would be like, for example, Facebook is rolling up on me as if it's like blank out of blank. Like, so you create these like parallel worlds of like, what would it mean for Facebook to be rude to you? It'd be like,
so you just made it funny to describe what was happening when before it wasn't, you know, it wasn't funny. You were just describing what was happening.
Right. Like, for example, like I do this a lot on Twitter where like I'll workshop different ideas. So like I did this joke not too long ago where I said the henna tattoo is the dry humping of tattoos.
I feel that.
So like, whether or not you think that's funny, like it's a formula. It's like, so there's a henna tattoo, like it's not a real tattoo. It's not going all the way. It's not permanent. So dry humping is kind of that way with like with fucking.
Right.
So like, okay. So then what would that be for Facebook? And would it be like that mean friend that always like pipes up and says the wrong thing to you? Like you'd create these parallel worlds, and then the way you would describe it would be, excuse me, as in that way.
Right.
And
yeah, no, it makes sense.
So
tying it to other. You're tying it to other stuff that's like on a more, even though everyone has Facebook and can actually probably relate to this, you're tying it down to a more fundamental level, which like everyone has that one friend that, is rude or whatever. And is like, oh yeah. Oh, remember that dress you wore? Like, bitch. Like,
yeah.
Man, no, I love it. But so do you do workshop jokes with other dudes or other women or other dogs?
There's a group of us here locally. There's 7 of us. We have a group chat on Facebook, and we get together once every 2-3 weeks, and we support all the shows we go to. And it really is a place where like we can go and say, this is a premise I'm working on. We can practice even performing our stuff. Like I've got in my house, like I've got like this, like an actual mic and a mic stand that I practice with. My other buddy has an actual like stage with a PA and a mic in his house. We'll go to open mics. We'll practice stuff. That's a good way to validate a joke, right? If you come to the table, the Knights of the Round Table, and and they're like, oh yeah, there's something there. Well, dude, and sometimes
sometimes
they'll give you like extra tags in that joke that'll make it just pop
that you
off.
never even thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I understand that too, because in business or in life and anything, and it took me, I didn't even learn this till a couple years ago, maybe until I was like 30, when it was like, being a semi-smart person, I would make decisions like, oh, I'm smart enough to guess how the average person would think about this decision. You know what I mean? Sure. But it's not really, it's still my smart ass analytical guess of what, you know what I mean? And it's not real. And it's like, you can't make stupid mistakes like that, like thinking people think like you. You just need to ask like 10 people. You know what I mean? Like maybe before you go and fire someone for something, maybe just go and ask like 4 people, like, here's what happened, here's what I want to do. Am I fucking crazy? And if all 4 people are like, no, that sounds fair, and I'm like, cool, let's go. But just understanding that everybody's different. You know what I mean? And that's with comedy, that's huge, right? Like what you were saying made a lot of sense about taking something and then kind of simplifying it by, bringing it down to a more relatable level.
Let me give you another example. This was a joke that I wrote for my Saturday set that I did. I walked up, and my very first joke on the set was, I said, hey, this is Cinco de Mayo weekend. Can we acknowledge this is a real holiday? 1862, Battle of Puebla, Mexicans beat the French, right? Okay, Star Wars nerds, you got to back up, dude. May the 4th, Revenge of the 5th. These are fake holidays like National Donut Day or whatever. So how about we give Cinco de Mayo the respect it deserves? This must be what Thanksgiving feels like when Christmas shows up the second week in November trying to flex its muscles. So like, this is what, blah, and it's right. And it did great. And it's like, it's that same formula. It's like, it's the comparison thing. It's the angle that creates a funny flex.
Is there any like books that are like the Bible of comedy? Like this book, every comedian has it. You know what I mean? Or like, I just know there's several books like this in any industry, and if they're sitting on your shelf, let's pull those out and or like just say the name so we can.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. It's usually over there, but it's called Mastering Stand-Up by, I want to say his name is Steve Rosenfeld.
And this is a classic.
It's amazing.
I asked you earlier, and you didn't even reply, so it must have not been funny. But I was like, why is it called stand-up comedy? I understand that you're standing up, but who are these dicks that are doing sit-down comedy? Like who's this funny one guy that's doing sit-down comedy that makes us all have to call it stand-up comedy? Can we just say we're doing comedy?
That's the guy in the wheelchair, asshole. Like that, he can't help it. Like, way to go.
Well, you can't make rules for one person. Fuck that.
I'm
all for like equality, but for one person, you just like, bro, we're not rebuilding this whole bridge just for you. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that, bro. Sorry. Like, it's just, you're standing up in front of a room. That's why it's called stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's great though, man. There's all different kinds of comedy too. There's people like me that don't have the balls to get on stage, and we can just be comedy writers.
Yeah,
just write stuff and then give them to the people, the warriors who are going to actually take them out and deliver them. Because like it's all how it works, right? So like when Jimmy Fallon comes out and does all his little jokes for his show or whatever, those are all written by probably himself in a room full of other people, right? I'm sure
he's
he
got
writes.
like 30. He's got like 30 writers that work for him at the Tonight Show.
And is he's involved in the writing too, right? Or at least definitely the approval of stuff.
Yeah, he has
right?
to approve them. He doesn't write hardly anything. He just performs them.
Right, but just to understand the two different pieces of it, and like you said, some people could write good, some people can deliver good, some people are the whole package, and it's just like how it's totally different. You could take this guy, he wrote the joke, let him perform it, he blows it, utterly blows it.
Styles too, like there's anecdotal comedy, which is like telling stories, and then there's one-liner comics, which are more like an Anthony Jeselnik, where it's a like one or two or like three.
Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hedberg, yeah, he's another one.
He's like, if you don't like a parade, run the opposite direction. It will fast forward itself.
I love it.
Oh my God, man. Awesome, dude. I got to head out because we're a little bit over time, but I really enjoyed hanging out with you. Let's do it again. Maybe I can come on your podcast and we can talk about reselling stuff.
That'd be cool, dude. Let's do it.
But what's up with the is Colby doing another Meltdown?
Last time I talked to him, he was working on this thing that was going to be almost like it was like a music vibe, like a Sunday service thing, like Kanye was doing, but yet more like, and it was really, really kind of low key. He was putting it together. He's kind of laying low right now for a little bit. So when he resurfaces, dude, it's going to be gangbusters. That guy knows how to put on a show for sure.
Dude, 100%. It was so awesome. Like this is how I met Colby, and I don't think I told you the story, but I made a post somewhere. I forget. I made a post, probably Facebook. I had made a post like just was having a bad day and was like, today's show's canceled. Like, fuck this, like whatever it was, just like whatever it was enough that I was like, yeah, I was being a little crybaby or whatever. Life's tough. And Colby, who I'd never talked to ever, DMs me and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. I think I can help you out, and just leaves his phone number. And, normally I wouldn't call this person back, but I was just in a spot and like, it just was really responsive. Like I think he commented on the thing, like I sent you a DM and then I checked it and then I was like, huh. And so I called him up and he just like introduced himself, told me what he's done, what he could do, how he could help me and like how he sees me, ways I could grow and improve and blah, blah, blah. And then I think in that call, maybe he was even like, yeah, you're going to do good. I can see you going places. And I wasn't, 100K dude. Then it was like, I don't know, 30, 25, like it really blew up over the last year. And like within a call, he was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, I'd like to have you come out. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'll do it. Like, let's do it. And that was it. And then, then it comes around and it's like, it's legit, and he's like, yeah, everything's coming. I'm like, whoa, like, okay, it's actually really, because people say shit. You know what I mean? People like to say shit, right?
Yeah.
And you don't always, I'm not one to be the cynical skeptic. I'm just like, okay, bro, you got this, But then it comes through and you just show up and everything was dope. The event was dope. Like everyone was really well cared for, like as a VIP, you know what I mean? And even all of the regular general admission. And it's like, I've been to these events where they're like literally being held together by like a dried out string from an old pair of socks. You know what I mean? Like the food runs out multiple times. You know what I mean? There's not.
Well, that's just Colby, dude.
Like everything's just bad.
That's just Colby, man. He's been super supportive, man. Like he's actually been to my shows before. Like he's been to one of my comedy shows, and it was cool to have him there because he was like, hey, he told me, he's like, I came to support you. I didn't know if you were going to be good, but he's like, I legit was laughing. Like it was a great set. Like it was cool to like have my friend not just be there supporting me, but like legitimately making him laugh. And then I was keeping him and Elisa and stitches most of the weekend. I saw him, and anyway, it was I got a lot of love for that guy.
Yeah, dude, Colby's amazing. I haven't spent a ton of time with him, but like, he reaches out to people, he helps people out, and genuinely cool dude. Like I don't expect people to be super cool, but I'm stoked when they're on the level. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Colby is like way above the level. You know what I mean? Like just like people don't understand. We're like, oh, we're going to the VIP after thing. Where's it at? Like, so we pull up to the hotel and it's like every luxury exotic car I ever seen in my life, like all lined up, like Lambo, Ferrari, crazy G-Wagon, like with gold chrome paint everywhere, like everything.
Yep. At
Doors
the W
up.
there in Scottsdale.
Yeah. And then we're getting like the exclusive, like freaking Titanic ballroom staircase entrance to the upper floor, where there's like, you know, a pool just for hanging out and drinking. You know what I mean? It ain't big enough to go swimming in. It's just like, you know, waist high, and like multiple hot tubs and cabanas. And Colby got us a private cabana, and there's already bottles. And like, it was the sickest event ever, because not only do you get like inspired, which that's not always at every conference, but you get tactical stuff, networking, and you get like legit networking, because everybody, I would imagine, met like at least one new person that they connected with, like on a real level, like me and you. Like, cool. Like, it's just too dope. And I think that's needed. You know, a lot of times the conference interaction is real dry. Like, I went to a conference in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and they brought in some comics, right? And so I was thinking of you just because, you know, I have a thug passion relationship with you, not because these guys are comics and you're a comic, but it made everything so much better. Like, there's probably 500 people, but only like 50 or 75 went to the comedy show, and we were just all roll. Like you said, the dudes they made you feel like they're friends really good. And so like there was at points where I was laughing so hard, and the dude wasn't even really saying much. He was just like, part of his joke, he was moving around on stage and like making noises, describing a certain situation. You know what I mean? And it was hilarious. But I made a deeper connection with all the entrepreneurs that were in that room that night for 3 hours, laughing their ass off and having some drinks. And then there was another day of the conference after that, you know? And so a lot of us sat next to each other, like exchanged whatever we exchanged, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, Instagram.
Fluids.
But point being is, I think a lot of people neglect that. You know, they're like, oh, I had a great networking event. But if people don't get to unbutton their coat, you know what I mean, and really get down, you know what I mean, you can't really network and get to know people. Like, you're not really like,
well, dude, everybody's thirsty for that, man. Like, especially in this world of like social media where you don't know who's real and who's not.
Right.
To like meet people in person to really get a vibe. You can cut through the noise very, very quickly and really get to the people that are real. That's one of the reasons I love going to conferences like that. It's because it's like you can smell it out. You're like, that guy's legit. That guy's full of shit. I'm going to make friends with that dude. Like, it's fun.
Right, exactly. When you're like, yeah, there is definitely opportunities that are presented where you get to get more information on someone than like what they present to you, like, you know, perfectly, you know, like, because people forget this social media shit's fake. Like, they forget, like, you know, like if I turned this camera over here, like my bed's right there. It didn't make my bed. Congratulations. You know what I mean? Like, you only see what I want you to see. You know, people are like, and I'm humble and I'm not taking no credit that I don't deserve. And people are like, oh, you're the best dad ever. And I'm like, don't think I don't yell at my kids and whoop them every once in a while, but I don't make YouTube videos about that. You know what I mean? So it does, it definitely, you know, that meeting people in person, you know, and it's awesome. You know, like I meet a lot of people. I met people at that show. I met another dude. What's his name? Calvin Wayman.
Yeah, he was at. Yeah, he was.
I met him there
Meltdown.
too, and I was like, and I just started like going through his stuff, and I'm like, because you know, superficially, I'll look at someone's thing and be like, oh, they have 400 followers or whatever they have, you know, and then I'm like, but damn, he has a podcast and a YouTube, and he's written 3 books, and I'm just making this up at this point, but Calvin does probably have 3 books and podcasts, and I was looking at his stuff, and he's like did a TED talk, and I was like, man, I just like casually sat down and talked to this dude for like 10 minutes, and then he walked off, and I was like, dude did a TED talk. And I was like you said, you know, I'm talking to this guy, and I was like, man, I just talked to a dude that did a TED talk.
Yeah,
you're just kicking it, you know what I mean? Like, in my head somewhere, I'm like, maybe he knows a guy that, you know, I'm gonna get a TED talk. Not really, but it's, you know, that is a possibility. I'm not saying that I've explored that at all. I'm just saying, being an opportunist, you know what I mean? That's how it works. Opportunities walk into your life, and you know, you might have a moment, you know, a cup of water at a fountain next to figure it out. You know, it's insane.
Yeah. Got to seize each moment. That's part of the fun thing of comedy. That's one of the reasons why I love when these guys come through town and I get to make friends with them, because I have no idea where that's going to lead. I have no agenda with anybody that I meet, but you never know how it's going to line itself up in the future. I mean, look at this, dude.
All it takes is one thing, literally, because that's how it is nowadays. You could be the funniest guy on the planet, but if your social media is not big enough, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. And then all it takes is one guy who sees your thing and then the other guy sitting next to him at the bar, who is like stratosphere, you know, he saw it too over his shoulder on his phone, made him laugh, and then he was like, who's this guy? And then he retweets your shit and it's game over.
Yep.
Is it 10 months to the Netflix special because of one post? And it's no different, you know, and you're like, in your head, you're like, fuck, like the epiphany of it. You're like, that ain't even my funniest shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the one that hit. You know what I mean? You're like, even like, you're like, that's a repost of an old thing that I post every once in a while. Like, but it finally hit, and we're all one piece of content away, one swing away. Whereas before, what were we doing? At least me, I was like growing up as a kid, you're like sitting watching the TV, listening to the radio. You can't do anything. It just comes at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we just live in this crazy world where anybody can become an authority on anything if you work hard. And if the people decide that, you know, you're worthy.
Yeah. That's why it's been a fun journey to like sharpen the craft of being funny,
Right.
and hustle to like keep myself top of mind as far as my socials and build
that feeling that you get, that you said you got on your second night, which was really your first night.
Yeah.
Does that prepare you for real life in any other way? Like, because I feel like that is a fucking crushing feel, like the most crushing feeling. That's pretty much like your loved one telling you they don't believe you and accusing you of lying when you're telling the truth.
I made a joke once that said that doing stand-up comedy is like getting kicked in the balls, hoping the aim is good enough to give you an orgasm. Like, it's so hard to really nail the sweet spot in doing stand-up, and you're constantly rejected. You're taking these ideas that come from your head that you think are funny, and then you're trying to perform them to your best. Cause like that's the other part.
So what you're saying is your balls are like impervious to kicks by now.
Well, no, I've learned to, especially in the creative process, to not be attached to, like, as soon as I create something, it's not mine anymore. Like, when I put it out there, I have to be willing to dice it up, cut it up, whatever, to make it different. It's like the original bit that I write is like a piece of fruit, and when you perform it live, it like squeezes it to get the juice out, and then the juice is what you can make something good with. Right. But what that means, though, is that you're going to do stuff for the very first time. You're going to write a new bit, you're going to write a new joke, and you're going to perform it for the very first time, and it's going to suck. And people are going to judge you for sucking when it's just a part of the process. And I've learned to let go of that. When I first started this back in last year, I would put all of my stuff online. And about 2 months in, I went through and I pulled everything off of YouTube that was a stand-up thing that I was doing. And I stopped because I got some really great advice. They're like, dude, all of that stuff is workshop stuff. You are planting a seed that you're not as funny as you actually are, because people are seeing the process, and people aren't smart enough to realize that. They're seeing like, you watch Joe Rogan's special, that's literally 5,000 hours of practice of him like figuring jokes out and tightening them and polishing them and redoing them and reordering and everything. It's not the second time he did the joke.
Where does he workshop his jokes when you're doing it? In the like a private behind doors?
No. He goes he does sets at the Comedy Store. Like, so
like some of the stuff in his special people may have heard before.
Absolutely. That's the thing, is that like when you create an act, you're refining stuff that has been performed over and over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense. Putting it all together.
Yeah. So I got wise. I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to put stuff out online, it's funny, it's going to be shorter tweets, maybe little videos, using like my Instagram stories to like joke around and do things, and maybe use an emoji deal or whatever. But like my jokes, I keep off the internet, because like you got to come see me to hear my set and my act.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean, you get to do what you want to do.
Dude, that's how all of the big name comedians do it.
Right.
Because they recognize that like a bad joke can cast a big shadow.
Well, comedy is really special in the fact that like any comic can only write so many jokes. You can only have so many specials. I feel like, because I was kind of trying to compare it to the music industry, and I was like, well, that's not how the music industry now works. Is like, make as much tracks as you can, publish them as fast as you can, you know, put out 10 songs a month, put out 30 songs a month if you can, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because one of them is going to hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how people are going to discover you. But at the same time, a rapper could make infinity songs, not infinity, but a lot. You can make a song a day, you know what I mean? You can't make a good joke a day, not a polished one.
Nope. And it's an art, like being
Do you ever watch battle rap?
No.
I got to turn you on to battle rap, bro. Do you
Okay.
know like what modern battle rap is? It's all written. So it's not freestyling anymore. It's all written, and it's a comedy, or a combination of, being funny or just like brutally insulting people and say you're going to do bad things with their family members. Like,
Sounds
but
delightful.
nope, it is. It's entirely, but it's all in good fun.
Okay.
Occasionally, the random dude takes it too far and gets punched in the face, like real. But for the most part, it's like just really witty. It's kind of nerd stuff, So if you're into rap, it's like multisyllabics, or like people are like, "Oh, do you hear how we did that rhyme scheme?" Like,
yeah.
But it's just super funny. There's a huge comedy element. You're gonna love it.
Nice. I'll check it out.
Definitely.
Sounds almost like just a rap version of like Kill Tony or something, where they do the clapback stuff where you're burning people.
Yeah, basically, except for it's just a little bit more advanced because it's a cappella and rhymes the whole time. So, but it's similar. There's like, rapping, people can write songs, but they can't freestyle. You know what I mean? And then battle rapping is a whole different thing because it's all about a performance art, and how you say the joke, you raise your voice and get louder and dominate the room. You know what I mean? But performance art. So a lot of similarities. A couple more questions I want to get out of you before we go. One is, you ever forget your stuff on stage?
My newer stuff, I do.
What do you do when you forget your stuff? Do you have like an emergency hatch?
Well, the only time I ever forget things on stage is when I'm working out new stuff. And so, and it's in like open mics, or it's informal enough to where like I can pull my notes out and look and okay, like, and that's happened before.
Cool. That's super like you lost the battle if you pull your phone out in the rap battle thing. That's a thing.
Yeah. Well,
see,
that's another thing is like open mics. Open mics are a workshop. Like if you did open mics right, you didn't crush, because you're there working out the edges of your jokes and find out what's funny and what's not funny. And then you take that, like I said, you take the juice of that fruit and then you put it into something where it's actually refined now. And then you do it again and again and again. The thing that bugs the shit out of me is when I go to open mics and there's people that do their greatest hits every single time. They're doing the same jokes, the same thing, and they're killing.
They're
wasting
it.
New people are there, but yet they're not honoring the craft of being a comedian by learning and creating more material.
Right. What about discombobulating a joke? Like, you ever have a joke that has multiple elements to it, and then like you start delivering it and maybe you give one piece in the wrong place, and then you're like, in your head, you're like 5 levels of stories of thought process, like, oh shit, how do I fix this? You're like, you're holding this piece of the story over here, you're thinking about how to work this one in, you're actually saying another one. Like,
yeah, that's happened before. And that just is, you just, when it's too far gone, you just kind of have to let it go.
Yeah, that was going to be funny, but I fucked it up. Sorry, guys. You ever say stuff like that, or no?
Yeah.
That's how you let it go, right?
Yeah. Like, and sometimes organically, those are the most funny moments where you're like, yeah, fuck. Yeah, I forgot. And then the audience laughs because like you're up there acting a fool and screwing up, and they're like, okay. Like there are comics that like I know here locally that the funniest times I've seen them on a stage are when they're just eating shit and they're trying to like collect themselves in the middle of forgetting. And like you're watching this spectacle. It's hilarious. That has nothing to do with their jokes. They're just trying to like catch their breath basically. And they're sucking at it. And it's great.
It's great. Delighting in other people's failures.
Yeah. Cause that's one of the things that's been really fun about being a comic is there's a rule. Like you're able to be way more savage and it's not a thing. Like if you have a mic in your hand, you have a target on your back. Like you can burn any, like I've made fun of handicapped dudes because they sucked, because they were comedians. Like they're up there in their wheelchair and rambling on. And then I get on stage afterwards and burn people because part of,
you're gonna love the battle rap, bro. They're like talking about people's disabled children. They like researched them before they got there. It's insane, bro.
I love it, dude.
It's the same thing. No holds barred, aggressive, for the sake of the art form, essentially.
Yeah. Well, that's part of like it changed for me about 6 months in when I realized as a comic, I'm not there for me. I'm there for them. Like I'm there to make them laugh. They're paying to come have a good night. They're paying to come laugh. They're paying to enjoy themselves. And so if I make it about me, I'm missing the point. And so part of that is that if I follow somebody that sucked, I have a really easy opportunity to connect myself to the crowd by pointing out what I just saw too. Like, you guys aren't crazy for thinking that was dog shit. That sucked. Like, let's make fun of that guy for a little bit. And like, that's an endearing thing. And the dude that just left the stage knew he had it coming. And I've been that guy before. I've been the guy that like somebody behind follows me and I just ate shit and he makes fun of me for a couple minutes. And you don't care. Like your skin is thick. It's funny on my podcast, Grab the Mic, a couple weeks ago when it was my year anniversary, I recorded an episode that was the top 10 lessons I've learned from the last year doing stand-up. And that was one of them. Is like, you got to have a really thick skin. Like, people are going to make fun of you, but they're not making fun of you. They're taking advantage of the data that you left behind to make a joke. It has nothing to do with you personally. And if it does, that's a different thing. But like 90% of the time, it's not about you personally. It's about the joke.
Right. Oh man, no, I love it. I could talk for days about comedy. So hopefully I get a chance to see you do a performance sometime, since you don't put it on the internet.
Well, I'm trying to work out some stuff to be in LA to at least do some 15-minute spots there. So if that happens, we can figure it out.
Maybe. I live 6 hours from LA. Everyone thinks California means LA.
No, where do you live? For some reason, I thought you lived in LA.
Northern California. So Santa Cruz. So about an hour south of San Francisco.
Okay.
But yeah, or maybe Colby could do a comedy thing at the next event, Meltdown comedy night.
We've talked about it.
Why not? I'm telling you, it's the perfect icebreaker for bringing people together. Like, you throw an event, you have some good drinks, you have some good music, maybe a little dancing and a comedy.
Well, dude, so this is an interesting sort of connection.
You just made lifelong friendships.
One of the interesting bedfellows that has become a really good friend of mine throughout this whole journey has been Keith Yackey. He actually spoke at that event too. He's you remember who Keith is, right?
No, I don't.
He was the guy that had like the gray hair and he's kind of buff.
There was a lot of buff people at that conference. Honestly, I felt really, he was really green beanie.
Yeah, he was one of the speakers. Anyway, he lives in Vegas and he's done some really cool stuff in comedy, and we've kind of shared, like, every time I have a cool thing, I'll text him and he'll text me. And it's been kind of cool to have that. Like, that was a Meltdown connection as well. I'd never met him before Meltdown. And I saw on his Instagram stories that he was like in the green room at the Wise Guys Comedy Club here. He opened for Brendan Schaub. And I'm like, what? And we kind of started the conversation there because he's done some cool stuff with like Tony Hinchcliffe. He's done some stuff at the Comedy Store. He was on a show with Kevin Nealon. And he's like me. He's like an older, not old, but like he's an established guy. He runs a private equity firm. Like he's got some money and he loves doing stand-up.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Dude, more power to people that are chasing their dream. You know what I mean? Because why not? You only got one life to live, and you don't want to be, it's not going to be so easy to start when you're 75, right? And so probably a lot of people that are older people, look back at their life and they regret a lot of stuff. So I like to see people, chasing their dreams. Like you said, if it doesn't work out in 3 years, or it has to or whatever, at least you're putting like some kind of timeline on it. You know what I mean? Because maybe it's not your thing. Maybe you really like comedy, but maybe you're really good at something you don't even know exists yet.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It's just the journey. We all have the ability to try so many things.
I guess I do have one bit on YouTube.
What is that one? Is it on your channel?
Yeah, it's on my channel. I called it pansexual emojis.
Oh,
it's funny. It's funny. Like I've even revamped it. Like that bit's way better now than it even was when I recorded that on the special that I did on that one. But that one,
that would be an interesting thing to do, is to do the evolution of a joke. So like literally, here's the first night that you busted the joke off at, dive bar, wherever, open mic, and then go forward, to, the 10th time that you've done it, or the 5th time, whatever, all the way to like the fully polished version. And it would be kind of like seeing the behind the scenes of like stop motion films or whatever, or I really like to watch these skateboard videos where they call it like raw uncut or whatever. So instead of just seeing the trick the guy did, you get to see like all 30 tries that it took him to do it, across an hour or whatever. And that's, it's a journey. You feel like when they finally get there, you feel like you went on the journey too.
Sure. Yeah. That'd be an interesting thing. One of my friends here locally, like he records everything, and his goal at the end of the day is to create like a documentary about kind of his journey to stardom. And so he's got literally probably hundreds of hours of footage already to do that.
Dude, Gary Vee started a trend. There's going to be like 10 to 15 years from now, there's going to be so many people that succeeded in massively amazing feats that documented the whole thing all the way through. It's insane. Like, I know a kid, I met him through basically YouTube and Gary Vee. I met him in Paris. He came out to my meetup in Paris, one of the 2 people that showed up, and he does fencing, and he's on a quest to become an Olympic level fencer. And he's like pretty good, but he has some advantages because he was born in a country that doesn't have a lot of athletes in it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I don't know a ton of the details, but the point being is he's already doing it. And like, if he does, no one's watching now, you know what I mean? But you make it, you actually make it, and it will be like, dude, that's never happened before. There's never been an Olympian that documented his journey to go to the Olympics from day one. You know what I mean? Like, imagine the back catalog after he does it. You go back and it's going to be madness.
It's gonna be sweet. Well, that's one of the reasons why I document everything but what goes on actually on stage. I mean, I record everything. I record every single one of my sets. I study what I did.
Right.
I transcribe the jokes so that I can see where to cut and trim the fat and make it better. But there's going to be some point in the future where I'm going to have had a massive breakthrough where I'll have, you know, a really large fan base, some sort of like exposure where people have been able to have access to me as a comedian. And it's going to be cool to like have all this. My podcast, Grab the Mic, is basically that. Like, it's me. In my intro, I even say that I'm showing you a behind the scenes look into a world that few understand, but many are drawn to, that of stand-up comedy.
Nice.
And I crack jokes, but I tell the process too. And it's
Do you also
fun.
talk about current events in comedy, or, you know,
sometimes
sets you did recently?
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, I release a new episode tomorrow about my weekend with Rick Gutierrez and what that looked like. And I talk about some of the funny shit with the internet and Game of Thrones and, you know.
Nice.
So
yeah,
it's a way to farm out bits too. Because
when you said the internet and Game of Thrones, it made me think of Endgame, which I'm obviously not going to give any spoilers out because I'm not a dick. But
Batman dies, dude.
Batman dies. I love it. So that's actually a joke that I have is, so here's the first idea I have is, like, you go to a big movie on opening night and you're filming yourself live, actually ruining the movie for people. Like, imagine you go to Endgame on opening night and you're just ruining it for people that are in line as soon as you come out of the first showing. You will literally get knocked out. For
Dude, people
sure.
are so funny about spoilers. Like, my big thing, and I just tweeted about this before we got on this call, like, people pissed about Game of Thrones spoilers can eat a dick, dude. It's a goddamn TV show. It takes you less time to watch it than it does to tweet about bitching about the spoilers. Go take a dump and watch the episode. That's how long you could do. Like, quit bitching about spoilers. Endgame, you got to go to the theater. I get that.
Right,
but like, TV, come on.
So here's the other idea. So you don't want to really be a dick. The next idea is you just make up fake spoilers and you tell those. So you walk out and you're like, fucking, like you said, Batman dies, but actually use a real character that's in the movie, or like, you know, so and so. You're like, yeah, Hulk and Iron Man had a baby. What? Like, you know what I mean? That might get you beat up too. But then you're like, wait, I'm just joking. It's a joke. Like, but it is. It's just the reason it's funny is because it's just a piece of entertainment, and people take it so goddamn seriously. My younger brother, we watched the TV show The Flash, right? One of my guilty pleasures. And I think he watched maybe season 1, which is now on season 5. And if he's like downstairs and we put it on, he's like, I gotta go. He's like, I gotta go. I'm not caught up yet. I'm like, fool, you're not even watching it. You quit watching it 3 years ago. Like, at some point in your life, you're reserving the time to go and watch every season. You just might have to, you know, geez, I need 3 seasons of a show to get me through this weekend.
That's one of my favorite like tags that I'll use is like when I have a joke about Marie Antoinette in my act, and I'll be like, what, too soon? Like, because, you know, it's fucking 300 years old or whatever.
Right. Too soon. Hey, I gotta go. I'm actually being a dick right now because I had to be somewhere a half hour ago. So,
well, I appreciate the chat, my man.
Yeah, no worries. Definitely, man. We'll connect with you in real life. Like I said, guys, down below are all Bryce's links. If you're listening to this on the podcast, and it might be Monday morning because that's when the shows come out on the podcast, check us out on the live show, which is Monday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if this show doesn't make sense to you because you came here for Amazon stuff, we're just trying to explore, you know, new territories, business, entrepreneur stuff. But if that's what you came here for and you want to get in the game, go to reezyresells.com and grab a copy of my free Amazon course. That will get you in the game. You literally need nothing else except for a little bit of sweat equity. But yeah, thanks for listening, for watching. And remember, we say you ain't flipping, you slipping, but I feel like it makes no sense because, it was a comedy episode. So if you ain't hustling, you a busta. I don't got a fancy rhyme ready for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got nothing either. Like,
you're not a rapper, you're a comedian. All right, man. Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys, on this experimental show. We'll see you next week. And yeah, if you ain't flipping, you slipping.
See ya.
Peace.